My name is Alex, and this happened when I was in my freshman year of college. I used to smoke a lot of weed at that time. I smoked so much that all the weed I had access to began to become bland and boring to me. This one girl named Madison I didn't know too well but had mutual friends with told me one day in class she was having the same problems with weed until she met this one plug who grew his own stuff. She said his stuff really hit different and it wasn't sketchy or laced with something or anything like that, she claimed. So she gave me his Snapchat and I figured I'd hit him up later on. That same night, I arrived back at my dorm late after making a quick trip to the nearby town to buy some toiletries. It was like 4 in the morning. As I was entering my building, someone came out of the bushes next to the door. It was some guy I had never seen before. He was wearing gray sweats, a black shirt, shades, and a black Dodgers cap. Right away, I knew this guy looked like trouble. He looked way too old to be a student, and there was no reason for him to be wearing shades at 4 o'clock in the morning. He approached me saying, "You Alex?" I just said, "Nah, man," swiftly entering my building and closing the door behind me. Thank God it auto-locks. I took one last look as I got to the stairwell, but I didn't see anyone out there. When I got to my dorm, I noticed my roommate was out. I laid down on my bed and called Madison. She didn't pick up at first, but she picked up on the second time I called with a groggy voice. I asked her if she had told her plug about me, and she said no. Why? I told her about the guy I had seen outside my building. After describing him, she said that did sound like it was him, but she didn't know how he could have known where I live or known my name. I hung up the phone, and that's when I remembered something. I had my location turned on for everyone to see on Snapchat, and I guess he had added me back at some point during the day and I hadn't noticed it. Just then I got a knock at my door. I looked through the peephole, and there was that guy standing out in the hallway. How the hell did he get into the building? I sat back down on my bed and was about to call Madison when I saw the guy had sent me a snap. I don't know why, but I opened it. He sent me 2 pictures. The first was of outside my door. The caption read, "I know you're in there, Alex." The next was a picture of a pocket knife in his left hand. The caption was, "Open up, bitch." I decided I was calling campus police. As I explained the situation, he started banging on the door loudly while saying, "Open the door, buddy. I just want to smoke some weed." I yelled that I was calling the cops, and the noises stopped. As I was on the line with security, I took another look through the peephole. I could see he was now crouched down by the side of my door like he was trying to hide. I sat back down on my bed and stayed on the line with security. 5 minutes later, I got a knock at the door, and this time it was campus police. They told me they didn't see anyone in or around the building when they came in. The whole situation ended up being escalated to the proper authorities. Surveillance footage of the guy was obtained and forwarded to the authorities, but I don't think they ever caught him. It turned out that he had entered through an open window that was near the back of the building in a storage room. I noticed he deleted me off of Snapchat after that. Madison also claimed that she had lost contact with him. I didn't trust Madison after this, though. Call me paranoid, but I couldn't help but wonder if she has something to do with this whole thing. Like she set me up or something. I stopped talking to her after this, but it didn't matter much, however, because we weren't even really friends in the first place. I was majoring in forestry at Purdue University. The weeks leading up to spring break were hell. I had come down with mono and had missed almost 3 weeks worth of classes. So on a Friday evening the week before spring break, instead of hitting the local bars with my friends, I was out in the woods alongside the Wabash River determining property lines for an assignment I had missed. To be fair, my professor had offered to come along with me if I had waited another few days, but I wanted to get it done ASAP. This was just one of my many assignments I still had to make up. So it was about a 15-minute walk from campus to the woods, and following the map, I hiked a mile in to get to the first boundary point. Using other documents my professor had provided, my assignment was to basically determine the length and direction of at least 4 of the property lines. It was 6 p.m. and already 50 degrees out, but the job shouldn't take me more than an hour. Well, things took a turn for the worst when I lost one of the lines I had been tracking. I thought for sure I was right on top of it, judging by the map, but I had gone almost half a mile and hadn't seen any markers. I realized I'd somehow gotten horribly disoriented when I started walking back in the direction I thought I had come from, but wasn't seeing anything familiar. At this point, I had absolutely no idea where I was on the map, and the sun was setting fast. Being lost in the forest is bad enough, but being lost in the dark is a whole different story. I unsuccessfully tried to reorient myself using the map, and then I figured I'd just continue to head west since I knew I'd hit a road eventually. I'd been able to remain relatively calm, but it didn't take long for the sky to fade into black, and I had to navigate using my phone as a flashlight. I decided to stop to rest on a log and eat some of my trail mix, and that's when I heard something over the crickets and the other night creatures making their sounds. It was footsteps. Undeniably bipedal footsteps too, crunching the leaves in the very near distance. I wasn't sure what to do. I kind of just froze up and listened. For some reason, I also turned off my flashlight. I just suddenly didn't feel comfortable having my presence exposed like that. The footsteps seemed to be walking towards a large cluster of vegetation to my right, and then they stopped inches from it. I sat there listening. For probably 20 seconds, I heard no new sounds. I figured it was time to go. As quietly as possible, I packed my trail mix into my knapsack and slung it over my shoulders. Then I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight. As the light washed over my immediate surroundings, I picked up on some slight movement in the corner of my eye from the bushes I had been sitting next to. I turned to the bush and saw him, a person, but just their face peeking through the leaves. I couldn't even tell if it was a man or a woman because their face was so messed up. They didn't even look human. They looked like they had suffered from some serious kind of burns and had odd scars running from their forehead to their chin. I let out some kind of panicked yell and made a run for it. I could hear footsteps chasing after me until I began to approach lights in the distance. It was a road. The chasing footsteps stopped once I came within 20 feet of the road. Once I was on the road, I was able to hitch a ride back to campus. From there, I went straight to my apartment and emailed my professor to explain what happened. A few of my roommates were home when I got there, and I also told them everything that had just gone down. One of the guys who grew up in this area told me something that made my blood run cold. He told me I was really lucky I got away from that guy, because apparently there had been a meth lab explosion out in those woods about a month prior. As a result, they resorted to making their product in the woods and are very defensive, even homicidal about their stash. I'm currently studying computer science at my university. This happened about 6 months ago. I was having trouble balancing my work schedule with all my classes, so I had a couple of them moved to evening times. One of those was my CMSC 351 class. It was not a popular class to take at night, so the lecture hall was pretty empty. I was just taking notes on my laptop and listening to the professor when I started noticing this one guy. He was sitting in the far upper right side of the room. He was wearing a black hood pulled over his head and a face mask. He didn't have a laptop or any paper on the desk in front of him. He was just sitting there motionless, hands clasped over the desk with his head turned to face me. I could see him out of the corner of my eye. Ever since I first picked up on it, I kept low-key turning my head in his direction to sort of keep tabs on him, I guess. He spent about 5 minutes staring at me. He wasn't even trying to hide it, his whole head was turned to face me. Later on, I noticed the guy had moved seats. I hadn't seen him get up and move, but after glancing in his direction, he had definitely moved a row down, closer to me. All the other students in the hall were sitting in front of me, so nobody else seemed to notice him. Yet again, a few minutes later, I saw he had moved another row down. Now there was only one row separating us. I thought about turning around and saying something, but I didn't want to cause a scene in case I was just misinterpreting the whole situation. I glanced at the clock and saw we had 20 minutes left in class. I figured I'd stick it out. There was no way he'd try anything in front of the professor. As class was wrapping up, I noticed he got up and left out one of the back doors at the back of the room. I also noticed he didn't have a backpack with him. It was creepy, but I managed to mostly forget about it as 5 minutes went by and class ended. I grabbed my things and started walking back to my dorm. At some point while walking, I started hearing footsteps on the concrete behind me. I turned, and there was a silhouette of a person about 10 feet away. I quickened my pace, and they quickened theirs. I decided to lose them by making a sudden turn down some path through a wooded area that was a shortcut to my building. I jogged down it for a bit until I was sure I was no longer being followed. Then, I stopped dead in my tracks as a guy came from behind a tree and started walking towards me. He was wearing all black with a hood obscuring half of his face. There was a shiny object in his right hand. I took a step back when I felt a gloved hand cover my mouth and an arm wrapped tightly around my body. The guy in front of me got inches from my face, and he held up the shiny object, which was a blade. "Take her shirt off," he said. I elbowed the guy behind me in the stomach as hard as I could. He grunted, and his grip on me loosened. I took the opportunity to break free and sprinted down the path towards my building. I could hear them chasing me, and one of them was yelling a string of obscenities. As my building came into view, I saw a group of students standing near the entrance. I started screaming and crying for help like a psycho, and they ran towards me. I told them 2 men were attacking me, and 3 of the guys ran in the direction I'd come from to try and catch them, while the others stayed with me. One of them got in contact with campus security, who then contacted the police. The whole thing was a mess. I had to go down to be interviewed at the station, and by the end of it, I had never felt more tired and awful in my entire life. I must have cried for 3 hours straight. Apparently there had been a string of related attacks around campus recently, which I had no idea about. The perpetrators were not students, and they were not able to be identified, but police speculated they were involved in over 9 sexual assault cases. I haven't heard of any updates on the case since. It was just another ordinary evening at my dorm. My roommate was out partying, so I had my girlfriend over. We had just been hanging out for most of the night and watched Don't Be a Menace to South Central while drinking your juice in the hood. By the time the movie was over and my girlfriend left, it was 1 a.m. Just as I was laying in my bed ready to get some shut-eye, I got a text message notification. It was from my girlfriend. It read, "Can you please come outside to the stairwell?" I asked her why, and she said, "Please, just come." I begrudgingly got out of bed and walked out into the hallway. I looked up and down. It was empty at this time of night. I texted my girlfriend asking which stairwell she was in, because there were 2 on either side of the building. She responded, "The one on the right. I can see you, just come down here." I had no idea what this was all about, and I was too tired to think about it. I just started walking towards the door to the stairwell at the end of the hall. When she said she could see me, she must have meant through the little window on the door, but I didn't see her standing at it though, as I walked over, nor did she open the door to greet me. Just as I was reaching out to open the door, someone brushed my shoulder. I turned around, and it was my girlfriend. "Hey," she said, "is my phone in your room?" My brain, running on no sleep and 3 Red Bulls, just stupidly replied, "Huh?" She said, "I think I left my phone in your room. Do you have it?" I I stared at her for another 3 seconds, then finally thought to ask, "Were you not just texting me from the stairwell?" Now she looked just as confused as I was. "No," she said, "I don't have my phone on me." From the stairwell came a low chuckle. Barely audible, but we both heard it. I didn't know what to think at that point. I opened the door to see an empty stairwell. I walked to the railing and looked down to the bottom floor. No one was there. I looked up. No one was on the top floor either. It was completely dead silent in there. Then my girlfriend said, "Look." Her phone was lying on the ground next to the door, and it was unlocked. "What the hell's going on here?" I asked. Again, she looked confused, and I told her to open our texts. She looked scared as she read them. She said there was no way she could have sent those because during that time she was in the lobby and realized she didn't have her phone. At that point, I was thoroughly freaked out, and the silence in there was creeping me out. I ushered us out of the stairwell and back to my room. After discussing it, we came to the conclusion that the only logical explanation was that one of the guys on my floor must have been pulling a very elaborate prank. I texted a bunch of them to ask if it was any of them. A couple of things I just didn't understand though. How could whoever was pulling this prank have gotten my girlfriend's phone off her? And the other thing, there was no possible way they could have left the stairwell during the time from when I heard the chuckle to when I opened the door. There just wasn't enough time to run and hide. And even then, I would have heard them running on the metal staircase. But we didn't hear any sounds other than the chuckle. By the next day, I had spoken with damn near everyone in the building, even the RA. Everyone swore up and down that they weren't messing with me, and they all seemed sincere. I still don't know what to make of the whole situation, but the fact that whoever that was trying to lure me into the stairwell still gives me the creeps.